So, good morning everyone, and welcome to the first virtual meeting of the Greater Manchester Housing Planning and Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee. This meeting is being live streamed to members of the public in line with the latest legislation enabling our meetings to take place virtually during the coronavirus. First item, we've received apologies, and we've received apologies from Councillor Dorothy Gunther, Councillor Linda Robinson, and we also have a number of substitutes standing in. We have Councillor Ray Dutton, Councillor Adrian Pearce, Councillor Karen Garrido and Councillor Adam Marsh. Item 2, appointment of chair. So I'm asking people, I'd like to invite nominations from the committee to appoint the chair of Housing, Planning and Environment Scrutiny Committee for the municipal year of 2020-21. Do I have any nominations? If you'd like to turn your mics on. And do I have any nominations from the committee?
I'd nominate Councillor Walsh.
And is that seconded?
Yes.
It's a second.
Thank you. So I'll now put Councillor Walsh in the chair.
Thank you very much for that vote of confidence. We'll see how we go on with this process. If I do break up and I have to drop out, I'll leave it to others to continue, but hopefully you can hear me if you can't see me. Second item on the agenda is the appointment of a vice chair. Our nominations.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Charles Gibson.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Councillor Gibson, congratulations and welcome on board as Vice Chair of the Housing, Planning and Environment Overview and Scrutiny. Thank you very much. Before we go into the agenda, can I just thank those who persevered this morning to get into this process, and remind you that there are a number of items which we'll be coming to later, which we will not be determining today. We had an informal meeting yesterday, which a number of people were present, and we need to just sort out the future work programme. We'll deal with those as they come up. So I remind you, please, to turn off microphones if you're not speaking, so that we don't have too much background noise of the mobile things around the household. I'll do my utmost to keep an eye on everyone who wants to speak. They can indicate through the chat box if you wish to speak on an item, please. That's extremely helpful to listeners who are keeping up. Item 4 on the agenda is the membership, and we have that list on the agenda, and we have apologies and substitutes noted. Item 5, the members' code of conduct. This is a standard document, and I trust subscribe.
John, item 4, I did indicate I wanted to speak on that.
I'm sorry, you didn't come up on mine, but sorry, Liam, you want to come back on that one?
Yes,
please?
In terms of membership, I think we do need to keep on top of people's attendance. Last year we had more meetings that were cancelled than actually went ahead, and I think it's a dereliction of duties of councillors that don't attend or provide a good enough reason for not attending. So I think when we give the apologies, I think a proper excuse should be given by members for not attending, because I think it's not on that people are skipping this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Code of conduct, item 5. This is members' information acceptance. Everyone concur with that? Anyone dissent? The annual declaration of interest form, which is in the pack, needs to be returned to Joanne please, for record is a public document and therefore needs to be returned to Joanne as soon as possible, please.
Councillor Walsh?
Yes, Joanne.
Could we just, obviously what's gone out in the pack is a PDF, and some members have been in touch saying obviously they're not able to fill in that form. What we will do, we'll send out a Word document so that you're able to complete the declarations of interest and members' interest. Thank you.
Being a fountain pen and blotting paper man, I've already filled mine in, Joanne. It'll be in the post to you.
Thank you.
All right. Item 7, terms of reference. These are fairly wide-ranging, and it's on that we will need to talk later when we come to work programme. But again, I commend that to be noted as our mandate for this year. Happy with that? Okay, thank you. Commend the ordinary business of the meeting. Declarations of interest, item 8. Any declarations which have not previously been declared pertinent to this meeting?
I have a declaration of interest that I've previously declared.
Thank you. If it is that items come up later, please declare at the appropriate time. Item 9, minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of February. It's so long ago, I struggle to remember much of it, but I did read through them and they seem to be a fairly accurate record. Anybody, fair and accurate record? Anybody disagree?
Chair, I indicated I wanted to speak on this again. At the last meeting that we had, it was discussed about GMSF. We had an item on there for the spatial framework that was taken off because we was told that the mayor needed more time for the spatial framework, but a update by the mayor would be provided at the next meeting. Obviously the next meeting didn't go ahead because it wasn't quora and it was decided that coronavirus we shouldn't have meetings going ahead, and now we're having meetings and now we've got our first meeting. There's no update on the spatial framework. So I would like to ask why, as chair, you've not asked for this update, which has come previously to us, because we was told at the beginning of the year that the spatial framework would be released for consultation again in the summer, and the members, elected members, would be briefed on that before it went live. So I want to know why it skipped another meeting yet again. Thank you.
My understanding is that it's going to combined authority in July, but if officers want to comment on it, if we can update me on that one, I'd be happy to take guidance.
I'm sorry, Chair, but we're here as a scrutiny panel of housing, planning and environment, and I think that this should be an item that we scrutinise.
Indeed, and that's one of the reasons that the work programme will be agreed shortly, and presumably that will be an item in July.
It was on the work programme for last year as well, but it seems to have gone amiss. Well,
we are going to the work programme very shortly. That's an item on the agenda, and that is, I would thought, that we would want to consider potentially at our July meeting before it goes to combined authority later in July. Joanne, can we note that fact, please?
Yes, noted, Chair.
Any further comments?
Yeah, Chair, just trying to make a quick comment on the minutes. I gave my apologies for that meeting, but it was not recorded, so it might just be noted, please.
We will note that. Thank you very much indeed. My memory doesn't go far enough to record who was actually there, but thank you for that. We will make sure that's amended. Members have to accept the minutes with that amendment. Thank you. We come then to the substantive item, plus consultation, which came as a later item, and obviously awaited tone, and we have officers in TFGM who are going to present this morning. What I suggest is that we take the reports again, so that we can hopefully cover most of the points during the presentation. But this is about consultation, not about the policy. I remind you of that fact. But is it Kate who's going to present this morning?
I think I'm just going to kick off. Is that okay? Can people hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi, morning. I'm Liz Tracy. I'm the monitoring officer at the Combined Authority. So thank you for the opportunity to present the report to our first ever virtual scrutiny meeting, which is quite exciting for those of us who are interested in governance and the like. As you'll see, the report itself sets out the process.
Can I just I've got a declaration of interest in this item and I won't join the discussion. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so the report sets out the process and the methodology that was used to consult a very wide variety of stakeholders on the proposed bus franchising scheme. I think those members who have been on this committee for a while will recall that previous reports were brought on the consultation process before that started. The consultation took place between October 19 and January 20, as it's set out in the report. And obviously the purpose now is to welcome comments from members on that process and methodology. I'm going to hand over to Kate Brown and colleagues from TFGM, who are actually the people who have done all of the work on this process. So really it was just to provide that short introduction. I'll hand over to Kate.
Thanks, Liz. Good morning, members. I'm Kate Brown. I'm from Corporate Affairs at Transport for Greater Manchester. And as Liz outlined, we delivered the consultation on behalf of the Combined Authority. Just a few points that we thought would be helpful to raise with members in advance, and obviously happy to take questions, comments and suggestions. So we briefed members of the committee back in September in advance of the consultation, and there was significant interest in the process to be followed. I think members at that time were made aware of the fact that this is and was the first consultation under the Bus Services Act 2017. So that means that there wasn't a precedent, and as normal, Greater Manchester was leading the way nationally in this regard. The report sets out the process around the consultation, but also around the communications and engagement activity that supported that. That was developed closely with each of the 10 councils and with the Combined Authority, utilising the skills and expertise around engagement that exists there. And obviously with elected members being briefed around how they could present and engage their constituents. Ipsos Mori, who many of you will be aware of, were appointed to deliver, analyse the responses, and will be producing a report on the outcome of the consultation, which will be considered by the Combined Authority at the end of the month. Members are no doubt familiar through your role as councillors with the requirements around statutory consultation, but we have summarised what that means in relation to this particular consultation, as well as some of the best practice jurisprudence that we took advice around, to make sure that the consultation was as fair as possible and that people had the chance to participate. So just in relation to the consultation scope, I think when we spoke to members back in September, we outlined that one of the issues that we were keen to convey is that this consultation was on a proposed franchising scheme, and that was the Combined Authority's proposed franchising scheme. So the consultation wasn't about the principle of bus franchising in Greater Manchester, it was on a specific scheme. So the consultation documentation that was prepared, and there was quite a hefty document that was produced, was to allow people the opportunity and the information to be able to respond to the questions on the detail of that scheme, and also with the assessment that was undertaken to inform that scheme. In relation to other documentation, that assessment itself was also published. That runs to some 500 pages. So you can see there was a lot of information there for people to consider to be able to produce an informed response. Just in relation to the questionnaire, so there were a number of options that people had in order to be able to respond. We produced 2 versions of a questionnaire. There was a short version which contained 9 questions, and then a longer version which contained 48, which was fairly comprehensive. Both of those questionnaires covered the core proposition and key issues and questions in relation to the scheme and accompanying information. However, those who wish to respond didn't have to complete a questionnaire. They could simply either write or send an email in with their views. So we were trying to do that to make sure that people had every opportunity to be able to respond. I'm going to just hand over to my colleague Emma Flynn, who's just going to summarise some of the activity that we undertook within the consultations, communications and engagement space.
Thanks, Kate. So with regards to statutory consultees, as Kate mentioned, there was a lot of material that was published to support responses to the consultation. All of this was provided to statutory consultees at the launch. So we wrote to statutory consultees and also provided them with hard copy materials at the launch to support their responses. In addition, statutory consultees were offered a meeting to talk through the information and address any queries. There were a small number of meetings that took place during the consultation period. We provided details of those in the report. That included a briefing with bus operators during the first week to talk them through the process and the materials to support responses also. With regards to public and the activity to support awareness and engagement with local passengers, members of the public and other organisations during the consultation period, that activity was designed to reach all Greater Manchester residents and beyond, working in partnership with the councils, as Kate mentioned. We looked to utilise as many owned channels across TFGM, GMCA and the councils during the period to support that activity, and also working through the media and through stakeholder networks to raise awareness. That was supplemented by some paid activity to increase the reach and penetration. In particular, we were conscious for those without digital access, how to make sure that they were aware and engaged also. So there was a focus on outdoor and print in local publications. Also, we ran quite a number of public information events also during the consultation period, and ensured that there were hard copy materials, so leaflets, and also the main document that were distributed in community buildings throughout Greater Manchester during the period, and those leaflets were also used to send out through other networks and to support discussions with community groups. Also, we focused a lot around engaging with representative bodies and groups, so looking at different sectors for that, again, to encourage their responses, but also to reach to a wider audience through their networks also. I think alongside the open consultation, we also carried out some qualitative research. So this was to explore the proposals with particular groups. So that was with members of the public and key groups including business, younger people, and also residents across the Greater Manchester boundary, considering neighbouring authority journeys. So that consisted of 2 large-scale deliberative events, which were kind of full-day events to walk people through the proposals, and also a number of shorter focus groups. And all of that activity was focused around the short questionnaire and the content within that. And then with regards to sort of oversight of the consultation process, we worked with and continue to work with the Consultation Institute, who provided quality assurance throughout the process. And they are an independent best practice body. So their approach looks at all stages of that process, from planning and development of documentation through to delivery and also reporting. And the outcome of that iterative process is expected imminently. Hand back over to Kate.
Yeah, thanks. Just a couple of final points, and obviously then open to questions for you, Chair. So the final response rate you'll see in the report was 8,516, which is encouraging. The report sets out a breakdown of how people chose to respond. It also sets out the number of responses by local authority area. We did receive a number of comments, so around 1,000 comments we received around the consultation process itself. A number of those were positive around the clarity of materials. A number of those did highlight that the consultation was complex as well. And the report sets out that obviously we'd recognised the fact beforehand that the process was complex, and we undertook a range of different interventions and different supporting practices to be able to ensure that people could receive information through, for example, public drop-in events and different materials. So I think that's probably a fair summary of the process. Welcome any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. Questions from members?
Chair, can I just say, it's come up saying that, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's come up on my screen. You don't have access to the Greater Manchester Combined Authority org in Teams. Select another organisation or contact your admin for more details. I don't know why that is. But my question is what are the financial risks surrounding the bus franchising? Because we have had an issue in councils where, with the airport, we've had to bail them out by £13 million. Manchester City Council a lot more because we own the risk. And what happens when costs increase? Does that mean that the costs of any increase to bus fares, will that be put on the passenger, or will it be offloaded onto taxpayers? Because if we are to run bus companies in the way that Andy Burnham runs Church House, the cost of a mega rider will end up doubling every year.
The purpose of this report is to look at the consultation process. We are not, before us today, we have not got a report on the proposals, costings and alternatives. This was a consultation paper, and I'll have to remind you that we are dealing with how the consultation process was carried out of a decision taken to proceed or to progress bus franchising. It is a report on, are we satisfied with the qualitative and quantitative arrangements that officers undertook in terms of the consultation on the proposals. It is not, and before us today, on the proposals themselves. Anyone else want to comment on that detail?
Councillor Walsh, we've got a question from Councillor Charles Gibson.
Right, Councillor Gibson, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a very quick one. Obviously, I'm delighted to see that Stockport is the second highest responder to the consultation. That's fantastic news. But I'm particularly interested in the residents in Cheshire East and High Peak and kind of what outreach was done to them. So the report very helpfully outlines the newspaper adverts placed in the Lancashire newspapers and the northern borders of Greater Manchester. Obviously, my ward in Stockport borders Cheshire East at the very southern tip of Greater Manchester. And I just wondered if there could be any more detail on what was done for the outreach to residents in the High Peak and Cheshire East as part of this process.
That,
I think
Liz or Kate, who could take that one, please?
Sorry, jumping in there. In particular, we did work and provide information and materials to elected representatives across all neighbouring areas as part of the activity to sort of support that awareness raising. And I think the additional point is through the statutory consultees, we did engage with neighbouring authorities in that process. So again, providing those materials and raising awareness through the local authorities also in those areas. Kate, I don't know if you want to add anything further to that.
No, I think it was something that obviously bus services in particular, Councillor Gibson, do run cross-boundary, and we know it's of significant interest and the impact of the scheme as well. So yeah, we did do engagement with neighbouring authorities, with neighbouring elected representatives. We also advertised the drop-in sessions that were being run more widely than just for residents of a particular borough, to try and make sure that everybody had the opportunity to participate. And certainly we didn't discriminate in relation to responding to inquiries and just trying to get the information out there.
Happy with that, Councillor Gibson?
Yeah, that's great help. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a question now, Councillor Walsh, from Councillor Proctor.
Councillor Proctor. I'm sorry, I can't see you, so I couldn't follow you. Apologies.
No, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to be quite complimentary of the consultation, really. I think it was very extensive, comprehensive, and I think it reached everyone it needed to. All the parties, I think, were able to be involved in that process. So I think it was a very, very good consultation, and it met its objectives. I think the problem we have is that in the new world we're in, I think if you'd done the consultation now, some of the results would be quite different, and the outcomes would be different. Issues would have been raised. So I don't suppose we can run any sort of consultation subsequent to this, but I think these issues do need to be taken account as we move forward, particularly in terms of the poorer communities that are going to be affected by the post-COVID world, and the greater take-up we've seen of cycling in the whole of GM over this period. So I think the results would have been slightly different if we'd run it now. Just wanted to make that point. Thank you, Chair.
Very, very, very valid point. I was going to suggest that might be one of the issues that we do want to flag up to the CA for its meeting on 26th of this month, that they need to take cognizance of potential changes to passenger numbers and utilisation of buses. So I concur with that. Perhaps, Kate, you can make sure that is noted, please. Any further comments, questions?
A question from Councillor August, please.
Councillor August.
Thank you, Chair. I think the report overall is quite good, and I appreciate and welcome the attempts to reach different communities of identity. I was wondering if you had the demographic figures as to the participation levels of those different communities as you've provided it for the different age groups. I also wondered, you had a language line. I wondered if you had the numbers of people who actually used that line, because it's not something that I had seen promoted widely, if I'm honest. And a further question, I don't believe any of these consultations were handed out on actual buses, like other consultations have been done in the past. Please do correct me if I'm wrong, but if they weren't handed out on buses, why not?
Chair, may I just take the first part of that response, if that's okay? Yeah, no, thanks, Councillor August. I'll ask my colleague Emma just to confirm in relation to the further breakdown of responses and what we've got, and obviously more than happy to provide further information. Similarly, in relation to language line, I'm not sure if we've got that information in the report, but we can definitely follow up and send that through. In relation to distribution of materials, We did have a number of engagement events in areas of high footfall that also included leaflets around the consultation in interchanges. So obviously that's an area where bus passengers do use it. It wasn't something in relation to vehicles themselves that we used, but recognising the fact that bus passengers as well as other users of public transport may be particularly interested. That's why we chose to do a number of different events and handouts multiple times across interchanges. So I hope that gives you just some understanding that we did try and reach those that we thought would be most effective.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Should I add, I guess, a couple of points to that, just with regards to the sort of full demographic breakdown? There will be all of the information that's available from participants that they provided at the point of responding will be included in the Ipsos Mori summary report. So there will be an appendix that sets out the full breakdown across that. With regards to language line, I will double check, but I don't think we received any calls to language line during the consultation period. But that was certainly a facility that was we raised awareness of throughout the consultation period.
If I could just come back very quickly, apart from language line, were there any other facilities for people who did not have English as a first language?
It was language line in principally, so there weren't any printed materials. I think because we've got such a diverse set of needs in Greater Manchester that language line was felt to be the most appropriate and the sort of on request service rather than trying to second guess what people needed.
I would like to say I think that raises a lot of concerns for me, to be honest. If nobody used language line, we do have a huge number of people across Greater Manchester who don't have English as a first language or perhaps even speak it at all. I think we've missed a huge number of people who need to be consulted, who use public transport and buses in Greater Manchester, who have been completely left out of this consultation process.
So I think when the report comes through from Ipsos Mori, when that's produced, I think that will indicate the demographic breakdown. I think because people didn't use language line doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't respond. So I think that will be something that's brought out further in that report. And there's obviously a range of different other engagement that was done, particularly through representative groups as well, to be able to ensure that the information was understood. So there's what the information was and then what the response might have been, Councillor August, if that makes sense.
Happy with that response, Councillor August?
Yeah, I look forward to seeing the follow-up survey from Ipsos Mori, and if we could perhaps bring that back to this committee just to have a brief chat on, that would be welcomed.
We'll look to include in the work programme for discussion later. Thank you. Any further questions or comments?
Question from Councillor Dutton, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dutton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question's already been answered very well. Kevin asked the same question, so I'll move on that one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
A further question, Chair, from Councillor Garrido.
Councillor Garrido.
Good morning. I've got just two questions actually. I'm just a guest and I got the report yesterday and I've read it as much as I can. And I'm just got one little concern about people who are unsighted, i.e., was there any leaflets done in Braille? Was it used on the talking newspaper? Because I know in Salford we have a talking newspaper, and I know that goes out to quite a large number of people who are unsighted, and I just wondered whether that was done. And my second question is, and I couldn't find any more, and it might have been discussed before, how much was the consultation? How much did it cost? Thank you.
Who's going to take that one, please?
I can pick up on that. Thanks, Councillor Garrido. So with regards to producing materials for people who are unsighted, we ensured that the survey and the website and all of the materials on there were accessible with screen readers to support that. So that was a priority, and there was a guide produced to support that also, that was published alongside the consultation materials. So the materials on the site and also the online survey. We also produced the sort of overview animation that had a audio to sort of support the key information and provide that in different ways. And I think, again, as Kate mentioned, with regards to the previous question, through engagement with groups, we also sought to go out and provide information and talk through the proposals with representative groups and their members also.
Thank you. Second question was a question of costs. So have we got any indicative costs? Was there an agreed budget?
So we set out the estimated budget prior to the start of the consultation, that in total across the key strands of activity was in the region of 660,000, and that was delivered within that estimated budget.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. No, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any further members indicating? Okay, thank you very much indeed. So, do members accept the report with the point made earlier about the need for consideration of the potential changes as a result of COVID-19? Is that a fair assessment of discussion?
Agreed.
Thank you. Members happy with that? Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you for the presentation and the detail this morning, and we will bring back the further reports as indicated. And we move then to item 11, which is the work programme, and this is the opportunity for members to have some input. We did discuss this yesterday at the informal meeting, and the general view was that we invite members to submit items for the inclusion in the work programme, and we will have a further informal briefing as we had yesterday before that work programme is finally completed and put together. There are the important issues to raise, as already been mentioned, the spatial framework, but if members could indicate areas of work to Joanne, so that we can then have that informal meeting and discussion and put together a detailed programme, which I hope we'll be able to stick to. One of the things that we haven't been able to do yet, and we need to do, is to get some dates from the Mayor as to when he will be available to make sure that we undertake the proper scrutiny of his functions pursuant to this scrutiny committee. But as by way of background, that was the discussion we had yesterday, and I'd welcome any views of members on that proposal. Do I take silence as being acquiescence to that proposed route forward?
Chair, as long as I do have to say on that, I think that should have been brought forward when the agenda was published, rather than making a decision yesterday. I think if members were given advance notice, they did know that we'd be discussing a work programme today, and I think there should have been some discussion on it today rather than kicking it down the can for another meeting. But if that's your decision as chair, then that's what we will do. But I do feel that it should have been discussed and agreed on today, rather than kicking it down for another meeting to discuss, because it seems to me that we're all here today. The next meeting we might not be quorate again, but given the attendance what we had last year. So I think it really in future we need to make decisions when they are required and asked for, rather than asking for them to be put forward to another meeting.
Well, and following the precedent that was set last year, my first year as chairman, that we had a discussion at the annual meeting, this meeting last year, and then invited members to submit. So we're following the same pattern that was followed last year, and that's the reason that we are suggesting the additional informal meeting as a virtual meeting sometime before the next scheduled meeting on the 9th of July. But that meeting on the 9th of July can have the matters for discussion that we agree for that first meeting and agree a final work programme for the year.
I wouldn't say that last year was a good year for scrutiny, so it didn't work last year.
We've exercised that view several times, and I note the point you make, and I understand that lack of quorum on a number of occasions was an embarrassment and a cause for concern, and that's the reason that we are suggesting the further online meeting, virtual meeting, as a matter of a couple of weeks off, so that we can then put that detailed work programme together and officers can produce appropriate reports. Other members wish to speak on that matter? Or are members happy to accept that as a way forward?
Chair, can I just ask, have we already set the discussion for next meeting, or is that something we would have to decide in the informal meeting?
That will be a matter for the informal meeting, so that we can make sure we cover. Spatial framework, I suspect, is going to be one of the major items, it will be the major item, but there are likely to be others, and therefore we would welcome early responses from members so that we can put together a work programme that is robust and at the first meeting does have some substantial items to deal with.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy with that.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Happy with that, Chair.
Councillor Dutton would like. Councillor Walsh, Councillor Dutton would like to comment.
Sorry, I've lost you, Councillor Dutton, so please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question on behalf of substitute members. Will you be inviting substitute to your informal for the setting of the agenda?
You're equally welcome to submit and to attend that informal meeting on whatever date it is.
Right, thank you so much, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Garrido's indicated she'd like to speak, Chair.
Thank you. I've lost all of you now, but I can hear you, so I'm playing blind on this one. Councillor Garrido.
Thank you. I just want to ask whether on your forward programme, whether or not you've got feedback regarding the COVID, purely COVID-19, about the coronavirus, purely and simply because of, I accept the spatial strategy, that is very important, but there is the homeless, there's the housing, presumably that's done by this committee. So I wondered whether or not there would be a report coming regarding what's happened during lockdown and how Greater Manchester has been faring with what is covered by your committee.
Those are very areas that I want members to submit views on for the population work programme, so that we can make sure we cover all of those points in the appropriate manner. Thank you for that. Any other comments? So Joanne, can we set up, please, another informal meeting to discuss the way forward on the work programme, please?
Yes, we'll sort that, Chair. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed. I've got a blank screen now, so I mean...
Sorry, can I just...
Yes? Hello? Yes?
Is it Councillor Walker wanting to speak?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
The one I was...
Councillor Walker?
Right, okay, you're just totally breaking up. Sorry, all I wanted to know was, as buses come back up, you know, this ability to use buses, but we've got this mask thing, are people going to be able to buy masks? Because I've not seen a mask in the supermarket for months. And I wondered whether they could buy them on.
Chair, it's Julie Connor. I understand that TFGM are looking at the provision of face coverings for passengers, but we can ask for that to be confirmed for a future meeting.
If you would, please.
Yeah, it'll be a bit. The problem will be because it starts on Monday, doesn't it? So
Indeed.
all I was wondering is common sense says that if the bus drivers can flog them, you know, let's say if you haven't got your own, it's £1, and you just buy it off the bus driver. But
yeah,
if you tell us at a future meeting, then it'll be ancient history, won't it?
Right.
My understanding is that the face coverings and the masks will be provided free at first, but suggest, Chair, that we get an email. Our TFGM colleagues have left the meeting now, so suggest we get an email round to members to update them on the situation after this meeting before the end of the week.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay, thank you for that comment, Fred. Any further questions? Okay. We will arrange a meeting as a matter of urgency. We move then to final item on the agenda, and that's the dates of future meetings. They were circulated on the agenda, and at the informal meeting yesterday, it was agreed that all meetings would start at 6 p.m. That was the recommendation unanimously agreed by those present at the meeting yesterday. I need formal agreement to that this morning.
Councillor Walsh, yes. Councillor Gibson would like to speak on this.
Fine, thank you. Councillor Gibson.
I'm very happy to agree the principle of always meeting at the same time, and 6 p.m. seems a very sensible time, particularly for those of us who work and have to get into the city. My only comment is the next meeting, the 9th of July, is the same day as one of our Stockport full council meetings. So assuming we have full council up and running in the way we expect to, there will be no representatives from Stockport at that meeting. But other than that, I think it's an excellent suggestion.
Thank you for that. It is a matter of previous discussion that we hopefully for the next municipal year will try and get this program meetings out in January, so that each of the local authorities can see how it fits in with their programme, and any clashes of that nature could be avoided. So I apologise for that situation, but hopefully for next year, when the degree of normality, the new norm appears, we can try and have a more robust assessment meeting. Other than that, are members happy to accept the principle of 6 o'clock?
John, I can't chat at the moment because it says I've been booted out. But I'm very happy that we are now agreeing a set time for the year. I thought it was ridiculous last year that we played musical chairs with dates and times. It was very confusing, and I think it's a good way of moving forward. I don't understand why it's taken so long to publish these details in advance, so that dates and times can be arranged with other councils. It was something that I suggested last year. I was told that it would be far too much work. I don't understand, why it would take a lot of work and effort to have done that this year, where we could have had dates set in advance, and it would also sort out the attendance issue. We get a lot of excuses that those meetings are clashing, so therefore we can't be quorate. And how it works in political groups, or at least it does in Tameside, is that if there's a particular panel that you want to go on, the group leader or the whip will present that to the group before the council's AGM and ask members for their availability. And when it comes to GMCA, there's an air of mystery to it because you don't know when you're going to meet and what time you're going to meet. So I think it's a welcome move forward, but I think it should have been done a long time ago because it's no way to run an authority.
Well, we had the informal meeting yesterday. The dates presented to us on this agenda to fit in with the other two scrutiny panels and the meetings of the combined authority taking place on the last Friday of the month. And that's why these dates have been picked as being the appropriate dates to fit in with that pattern, allowing for all three scrutiny panels to meet as appropriate. But those are the dates before us now. We've now agreed 6 o'clock. I've heard nobody demur from that proposal, and we will take forward with a view to trying to get dates out earlier the next municipal year to avoid having to have this repetitious discussion on that occasion. I'm as happy, therefore, with that matter.
Yeah.
Can I, therefore, before we close the meeting, just extend our thanks and best wishes to Councillor Brownridge, whose will be at her last meeting today. She told us yesterday she's been elevated to higher places in the cabinet, and therefore will no longer be a member of this scrutiny committee. So, could I extend thanks to her for her contribution, certainly during the last municipal year of which I've been chairman, and wish you well for the future.
Thank you very much, Chair. That's much appreciated. Thank you, and good luck with the rest of you. I hope the attendance improves so you can actually get stuff done. And I have put in a very strong request that my replacement does actually attend on a regular basis. Also suggested it becomes a whip matter. So fingers crossed we'll get better for next year. So good luck to all of you.
Thank you very much for that. That's been the whole of the business. Could I thank you for your attendance at this first virtual meeting and declare the meeting closed. We can all shut down and have a cup of coffee or whatever before our next virtual meeting. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye.